Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, broadcasting live every Thursday, 6 to 8 p.m. Central from Panama City Beach, Florida, home of the world's most beautiful beaches. I want to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining me on my weekly broadcast. Every week, I'll feature some of the best instructors, coaches, authors, and entrepreneurs in the golf business today. I begin with a great discussion on Coach's Corner, followed by an insightful interview with my special guest. So let's get started by introducing tonight's Coach's Corner panel. All right, good evening, everybody, and welcome to Golf Talk Live. I'm your host, Ted Odorico, and very excited about tonight's show. Joining me first on the evening's program is going to be, of course, the Coach's Corner panel, and I'll introduce the guys in just a few moments. And then a little bit later on, I'm going to be joined by special guests Ted Kesten and Chris Fuentes, founders of Ranger Ready Repellent. And I met these two gentlemen actually down at the PGA show this past January, and it's really a great product. And there's something a little extra special that these guys have done here given our current global circumstances, and we're going to talk about that. They've really stepped up and doing their part to help everybody out there. So we'll talk about that and more a little bit later on in the broadcast. But let me remind everybody that Golf Talk Live is brought to you by the iGolf Sports Network. iGolfSports.com is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing top quality programming designed specifically to attract the golfing enthusiast. Also, Golf Tips magazine. Golf Tips is the game's in-depth instruction magazine offering insightful reviews on the latest equipment and tips from top PGA and LPGA teaching pros who can help improve your play from tee to green. So don't forget to subscribe to golftipsmag.com. All right, joining me first up on the show is, of course, the gang on the Coach's Corner panel. I've got two great professionals. First up is John Decker. He's a PGA instructor and motivational speaker, and he's also a newly senior editor and top 25 instructor with Golf Tips magazine. He's also the 2015 Southern Ohio Teacher of the Year. Prior to that, he was the head instructor at the Grand Cypress Academy of Golf in Orlando, where he worked under top 100 instructors Fred Griffin and Phil Rogers. He's also authored the book Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, which also has an accompanying Bible study. Also joining him on the panel tonight is Clint Wright. He's a 30-year member of the PGA and one of the partners at TGM Golf, which is a big proponent of the R3 approach, and among the best, in my opinion, covering the short game today, and also a favorite guest panelist here on Coach's Corner. So, gentlemen, welcome to Coach's Corner panel here on Golf Talk Live.
Thanks for having me, Ted. I'm looking forward to it.
Thank you, Ted.
All right, guys. As always, thank you for giving of your time. I appreciate it. And just before we come on air, Clint, you were saying you were getting tired. A lot of things are happening. Of course, Clint's out in South Carolina, and you were talking about things getting a little bit busy out there. Tell us what's going on.
Well, our governor has put in a stay-at-home order, but one of the things that he exempted was recreation and exercise, which included golf course. And also, the associations have lobbied really hard to keep golf courses open in our state, and
right,
and which they agreed to do, but we agreed to do certain things as well to try to. In these days, you have to make your facility to where the customer feels safe. So, we did all the generic things. We put the bumpers on the flag sticks where the ball won't fall away in. Nobody flags out. We don't rake bunkers. We've taken the sand bottles off. We've taken water coolers off the course. Nobody can sit down in the clubhouse. So we've done everything we could do to make sure we sanitize the carts every day. And so we've done everything we could do. And as fortunate as it is, the whole situation is sad. We have people dying, from this disease.
Yeah.
But we also have to keep in mind that people are social. They have to get out of their house to do something.
Yeah.
And so with us, we've seen such an unbelievable mix of players. I mean, we've got folks who've never swung a golf club before in their life coming to an 18-hole championship golf course to play golf, because it's just what they've heard they can do.
Yeah.
And we have the casual. What's interesting is the casual club player coming back, and you're going to find this to be funny. But John, you'll recognize why I'm going to say this and how we've kind of gauged the play. We've had single rider carts. We have to make, as long as it's not a family member, we try to accommodate. They can get their own cart, things of that nature. But we sold every last dollar ball we had in the building 2 weeks ago. Sold out.
That's amazing.
Well, it's that player. Hey, I ain't played in 5 years. What's the cheapest ball you got?
Right.
And so if there's a silver lining to all of this, we hope there is somehow that maybe people are getting reintroduced to our sport the hard way,
Yeah.
So,
well,
we keep our fingers crossed this thing will be, move on and we can come up with whatever remedies are necessary for the people out here to feel safe to go about their everyday life, not just playing golf. I mean, to go eat in a restaurant and get your hair cut and things. So we're hoping that that's going to be soon, but we'll see.
Yeah, and that's an interesting thing, and I don't want to, obviously stay on it too long, but I appreciate the update. But you're exactly right. We always talk about growing the game, and I guess in a strange and odd way, this has done just that for some folks because they've been cooped up. Yeah, they've been cooped up for so long and not able to do a lot of things. And many of the golf courses, not all of them, but many of them are still open, and some of them are going to be reopening here real soon. So
that's right.
For the time being, you might start getting a fresh new crop of potential golfers out there, and from that perspective, it's a good thing. But it's running you ragged.
One other thing I can add to this is that my young golf teaching professional has been, going. He's got more business than he's ever had, and they're all about waist high.
Right.
Mom and Dad's going and says it don't care what it costs. That kid's taking a golf lesson today. So,
Yeah.
So we just have to deal with it.
Well, we want to increase junior golf, so I guess
we're about
however we get it
it's
done,
happening.
Yeah, it's happening.
It's
so
happening.
You want to get yourself to South Carolina. All right, thanks for the update, Clint. All right, John, I'm going to start off with you, and here's what we're going to talk about tonight. I did a little digging and came up with some interesting things to talk about, and we're going to talk about the 10 Tour Pro ball striking tips. Now, these are from 10 different pros. We may not be able to get through all of them tonight, but we're going to try and get through as many. So, John, I'm going to start with you, and then the next one I'll go to Clint. So basically you should have 5 each. So the first one, John, we're going to start with is from Dustin Johnson, and it talks about knee flex. So, in an attempt, I'm going to just read you a little bit about what he says, and then I want to get your thoughts and input. In an attempt to make a long backswing and store up as much power as possible, you can over-rotate and straighten your right knee. Of course, he's talking about right-handed golfers here, and of course the reverse would be for left-handed. The result is commonly a reverse pivot, which places the majority of weight on your left side at the top of the swing. This mistake also causes the club to swing back longer than you need, making it extremely difficult to square the club face at impact. So he's talking about the importance of your back knee. So for right-handed golfers, that would be your right knee, and for left-handed, that would be your left knee, loading up into the backswing. Talk about the knee flex, why it is important. He pointed out some things here, but I'm sure there's some more things. Why is that an important fact to keep in mind?
This is a great question, Ted. First of all, I want to thank you for having me on the show. And Clint, I look forward to tonight's discussion. Whenever I work with students, I describe the knees kind of as the shock absorbers because you're transferring weight, you're rotating. You need to maintain your knee flex in the backswing. And because when you explode and go into the golf ball, and that's what a tour player's doing, they're generating a lot of power. They're athletic, and it's an athletic motion. And it starts to get the proper knee flex. The first thing I look at is a student's build. I'm 6'4". I'm built in a lot of ways kind of like a Davis Love. So and Dustin Johnson, I know I've stood up beside him, and I know he is about the same height. Guys that are taller are going to have more knee flex just because of their size. But even if you're not 6'4", you still need to have knee flex. And to do this, it starts by getting the weight in the balls of the feet. A lot of times people don't flex their knees properly because they put the weight too much in their heels at setup. So I'm always working with students. What I do is there's two things that the listeners out there can do. Number one is get a 2x4 about 3 feet long and stand on it, and get to the balls of your feet right where the 2x4s are, and flex your knees and get into a setup position. And then as you swing the club back, you get a sense and feel because it's going to work on your balance a little bit. Now, you're only going to be able to take it back. You're not going to make full swings, but just get a sense and feel of kind of the takeaway. And the other thing that you can do and hit golf balls with is you can actually take like a basketball or a soccer ball and put it between your thighs and bend your knees and actually hit golf balls with, say, like a 7 or 8 iron with a ball between your thighs. That's a great way to help maintain the knee flex. So if you're losing your knee flex, when you lose your knee flex, you're going to lose your spine angle. When you lose your spine angle, then your arms and shoulders are going to take over, and there's a lot of problems that will occur from there. So whenever I look at a golf swing, I start from the ground and work up. I look at the ball weight and the balls of the feet, knee flex, hips, and go up from there. So knee flex is very important, and Dustin Johnson does it as well as anyone I've ever seen.
Yeah, definitely. Well said. Clint, this sort of rolls in nicely. I know we've talked about this before, but I'm going to give you Luke Donald's perspective of the posture. And he says when he sets up to the ball, he stands pretty tall at first, and then he has a little bit of a knee bend or flex, as John was talking about, and then he will tip his upper body forward from the hips. He indicates that this is important because a lot of people try to get their upper body over the ball by having too much knee bend. So obviously, certainly some knee flex, as John pointed out, for some taller folks. But talk about this. This is something, and I'm sure you're seeing this, and let's go back to what you were talking about at the beginning of the show with a lot of new people coming in. I'm sure you're seeing all kinds of different postures and things like that. Talk about why it's important. I mean, what does it matter how we stand or address the ball? What's the big deal, in other words?
Well, I think that John brought it up. It's an athletic move. You can call it golf, football, basketball. It's an athletic body motion that has rhythm and timing embedded. So you have to have control of the movement, the physical side. You know, we can talk about what the club's doing, what the arm swing's doing, but the overall power and control comes out of balance and posture and how you stand and how you can maintain that balance. You know, I've always talked to people before, says if you're going to maintain something, which we all know we're supposed to maintain our hip tilt, we maintain control of the center of our body to where it rotates around the middle and comes back to that, you know, where it'll return to where it started. And we talk about maintaining that. And in my mind, if you're maintaining something, assumes that you have it. You can't maintain something you don't have. You have to create it. And we can't create it while we're moving. We have to create it from the very beginning. So that posture and your the whole address position, how far your feet are apart, you know, alignment, everything is the start of that movement. And you, both of y'all know, and a lot of your listeners know, that most good players spend more time getting ready to hit the golf ball than they actually do hitting it. You know, getting lined up properly, getting your balance right. So that posture being right is critical to body control and timing, and particularly timing and rhythm. You've never seen a good dancer stand flat-footed and try to dance because you can't have body rhythm and timing. So, and you never see a good athlete of any kind that's standing straight up when the play starts. They're all in that balanced position to where they can move their body under control. So that to me, that's the importance of it, is simply that if we're going to maintain control of our body motion in order to create a good rhythm and timing through the ball, we have to start in that good position. And you're right. If you watch the practice tee, the people that struggle with this game as beginners are ones that are just not ready to make a swing. No matter what they try to do, they're not going to do it because they're not ready to make it and not ready to maintain control. And that's where the posture thing comes in. So the importance is whether you can maintain it, so therefore you have to have it in the beginning.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, you know, quite often what we see many amateurs do, and this is usually a big indicator whether they're in the right posture or not, is they tend to make compensations throughout their golf swing. They'll end up
Sure.
taking the ball or the club more inside than maybe what they should be doing, and so on and so forth. And it's usually because they're not in a good setup position with their posture
Right.
to begin with. So some great points there, Clint. Thank you. John, we're going to move on to the next one. This is by Camilo Villegas, and he talks. I think I pronounced that correctly. He talks about the left wrist, and this is, as he indicates, one of his favorite swing tips to keep that left wrist flat when you strike the ball. And he talks about his coach back in Colombia that he taught him this when he was very, very young, and this was one that he struggled with a little bit. And he said, just to give you a couple examples, if your left wrist is cupped, in other words, bent back at impact, then you've allowed the club face to pass your hands, and you'll hit a shot thinner or off the right to the right every time. In other words, a big old slice. And if it's bowed, bent forward, then you're likely going to experience hooking the ball quite a bit. And this is one that he's particularly guilty of. So talk a little bit about the left wrist. Again, he's made some points here, and you're welcome to cover them again. But this is an area, too, I think a lot of amateurs really struggle with is that left wrist.
Well, kind of piggybacking on what Clint just said, I first of all, as a teacher, I don't spend a lot of time worrying about where the left wrist is at impact. I'm one of the, I may be in the minority. I know there's a lot of teachers that do. I'm more concerned where their left wrist is at setup, because if you don't have a good grip, the left wrist, I see people trying to get their left wrist forward with bad grips, and that's going to lead to a shank or a really bad shot. So you've got to have a good grip, first of all. If you look at the modern golfers, they're going with stronger grips, which allows them to have more rotation, which allows them to get more what I don't really look at it as the left wrist. I look at it and call it more forward shaft lean. But the way you create forward shaft lean, where you're hitting, your hands are ahead of the ball, especially when you're hitting an iron, where you're hitting with a descending blow, is through the rotation of your body mass. It is not through your arms and hands. And that's the reason why I know what Camilo is saying, but as a teacher, that's not good advice, in my opinion, to give to students, because they're not learning to do it with their body. They're trying to do it with their arms and hands. I don't ever want someone to try to hit the ball with their hands. So, it's amazing, because I've been around a lot, and I'm sure Clint has as well. There's a lot of great players that I've been around, but when I listen to them explain the golf swing, they're able to do those things. They're able to focus on their left wrist getting it forward at impact because they're already rotating. The average golfer is not rotating. The average golfer that I work with is not rotating. And so if I try to get them to do the left wrist, it tends to lead to some poor things. So if you can learn to, first of all, spend time getting a good left-hand grip. If you're a right-handed player, both hands are important on the grip, but make sure that you got your grip right. And then when you get your grip in the right position, you can start working on your rotation. And as your rotation gets better, you'll start noticing that the arms and the hands and the club will all line up where they're supposed to be without you having to try to do that. So I always work with the body first and let the arms and the club and the hands follow.
Very good. And I think you're right. I think if, again, everything it happens from a starting position. And I think if things are put in its proper place from the very beginning, good posture, balance, and a good grip and that sort of thing, most of the different areas of your golf swing are going to fall into their proper order if you start with a good setup. So I agree with that. I mean, I've never really subscribed to that as well. I think it happens naturally if you begin with a good grip, but I don't really focus on that because then it tends to get people thinking about, well, I got to make sure this is flat, and they end up forcing it with their hands and so forth. So I agree with you a little bit on that, John. Clint, we're going to talk about, again, another common one. This is from Jim Furyk, talking about ball position. He says, here's a quick way, in his opinion, to improve your contact. He says, quite bluntly, stop playing the ball so far back in your stance. He said he's seen many, many amateurs do this, in fact, thousands over the years. He says that they think that playing the ball back will help them to make better contact, which to a certain degree is true, but he said many of them are playing it well back of their stance for their regular shot, and they're not getting a proper weight shift. So what's your thoughts on the ball position? Is there sort of a one-size-fits-all, or what are your thoughts, Clint?
Well, if you look over the years, there's been about as many opinions about that as we have players. But I always work with a person that says, I want you to take your posture, leave the club alone. I want you to, put your hands together, and they're going to be the closest to the ground in the middle of your body, dead center.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So then what kind of impact do you want to make? You want to hit the ball first? We always want to do that. The divot supposedly is to be in front of the ball, as we see. So if you've got the ball forward of that center, okay, then you've got to move your center forward to get to that point. Mm-hmm. Or you need to be able to have the ball centered to slightly behind the center on some of your shots. Now, you go back way in the day and look at some of Tommy Armour's stuff and Hogan's stuff. I mean, they played the ball in a different spot with every club.
Right.
The short clubs were played off your right foot, and the longer they got, the further you moved them forward. And I think the modern approach is a little bit more all in one place or within reason of center to slightly forward of center. Because to come back to what John was saying a minute ago, is that, we've also evolved into more body-releasing teachers versus arm releasers. And, so you see this blend of modern players that being taught by older teachers have this kind of combination body release and hand release, and then you see the even younger players are almost entirely body releasers of the club face. And to me, that's why they can hit it and swing at it so hard, is that the club face is never really doing any changing through the whole swing. They just moving it through the space and releasing their entire rotation with their body through the shot. And so with that in mind, you have to discover, if you're going to be a body releaser, which I would encourage, is you have to discover where the bottom of your swing is at. And you just have to experiment to find out where the bottom of your arc is. And then I believe it ought to be played on that spot or slightly behind it of a downward blow. Because if you move it really forward, you're going to have to slide up there to get it, and we know what that creates. A total inconsistency in ball flight when you start letting the center slide around. And, so in my opinion, I think that Furyk is right, that you can't be extreme, but I have always taught center to slightly forward of center as a single position with the irons.
Yeah, and I agree with that quite a bit for a couple of reasons. As you pointed out, a lot of players that may play it too far forward. Again, you've got to now move to the ball in order to make good contact, which creates all kinds of issues. And obviously, if you play it too far back, a lot of times people get stuck back there. They don't get a proper weight shift, and they don't really transition through. So you have to, exactly, you're right, you have to find that. And I think it also depends on your body style on that as well. I mean, for taller players.
That's why you mean.
Right. Right. And that's why I think it varies, and that's why you have to sort of experiment a little bit. So there really isn't a one-size-fits-all. I mean, you can start with one position and see how it goes, and then you can sort of go from there. But, yeah, I agree. I think you have to really kind of experiment, and you can certainly use certain things as a guide, but I agree with what you said. John, we're going to come back to you, and this one was one of the pro tips was Henrik Stenson. And he talks about shoulder angle. This is another one that, again, some pros focus on a lot and others don't. But he indicates here, he says, with a driver or fairway wood, your shoulders should be tilted at address. The left one should be higher. Again, we're talking about right-handed golfers, so just flip the reverse for those of you that are left-handed. But he talks about the left one shoulder should be a little bit higher than the right one and not square as they are with irons. And he basically says that this technique ensures that you reap the benefit of whatever loft your driver or wood has to offer, remembering that modern drivers are designed to carry the ball a long way through air, so setting up to a more solid position. So he's trying to get that proper shoulder angle and tilt, if you will, right from the beginning. Talk a little bit about that. What are your thoughts on the angle of the shoulders?
Well, the tilt, I call it the tilt when I'm teaching. He's correct. The left shoulder should be higher than the right shoulder for a right-handed player. And the reason is very simple. Your right hand is lower on the club than your left hand. And so that's the most basic explanation that you can give someone is your hands are not completely together when you grip the club. Your right hand is closer to the ball than your left hand. And so that is going to allow you to tilt. But what's important is that you tilt your torso so that you're actually tilting your torso where your left hip is pushing a little bit toward the target. Now, what this sets you up for is it sets you up for a swing that's going to come more from the inside, that's going to create more power. If you have your shoulders level, or in worst case scenarios, your right shoulder would be higher than your left, and I have seen that as well with golfers where they're tilted the other way, that is going to lead to an extreme over-the-top swing. So the more you can get that right shoulder down at your address position, that's going to allow you to come more from the inside. The other thing that's going to help you with this is the width of your stance. If your stance is too wide or too narrow, that's going to affect your shoulder tilt. So, for example, if you have your feet too close together, the closer your feet are together, the more level your shoulders are going to be. The more you widen your stance, you're going to naturally start tilting more. So for a driver, that's going to have the most shoulder tilt that you would possibly have off a level lie. And then the putter is going to have the least amount. And if you're a left-hand low putter like Jordan Spieth, your shoulders are going to be level. That's about the only time you'll have your shoulders level on a level lie. Now, obviously, if you're on a downhill lie, things like that, that's different. But on level lies, your shoulder tilt will be affected by the width of your stance as well. Very important, slicers. If you're a slicer or your ball starts left, look at your shoulder tilt. If you can get your proper shoulder tilt, that's going to help you come more from the inside, and you're going to create more power.
Well said. And the other thing to remember is it's something that really is more natural. As you said, your right hand is lower. Again, we're talking about right-handed golfers than your left hand when you're gripping the club. So there's a natural tilt. What we often see a lot of amateurs, and I'm sure we can all agree with this, is we see them forcing that tilt. And we'll see them almost like slanting, to extremely to the right, in order to feel like they're getting behind the ball, and that's not good either. So it really has to be a natural, and again, it depends and varies with the width and the narrowness of your stance. So some great points there, John.
Ted, can I follow up? Can I follow up with one thing I just want to mention? And when I say tilt, you do not tilt your neck. A lot of times when I have people tilt, they'll tilt their neck and their head, and it's not your neck that you're tilting. You're tilting your torso. So it's very difficult thing to you almost have to. A lot of times when I'm working with someone on this, I'm actually putting my hands on them, moving them in the position, because it's not a natural. It's because we're all taught in life to stand up straight, shoulders back. You're not doing that in golf, and so sometimes it's going to feel a little awkward at first, but it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, well said. Clint, back to you. This one is from Tommy Fleetwood, and this is one that we've heard talked about a lot over the years, and that is the lag. If you ever see a lot of the top golfers swing in slow motion, you can see the lag. This is where halfway through the downswing, the shaft is bent. It's almost like it's lagging behind the rotation of the body. As the player releases the angle in the wrist through impact, the club head rips through the ball with a little extra speed. Talk about the lag, and again, this is something that I think a lot of golfers misunderstood, especially our amateurs, and they try to force that. So explain to them really what's happening and what is really meant by the lag.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. You see people out trying, to try to get their body fully turned before the club head ever gets back to the ball, trying to create as much lag as possible, so they hear this on the Golf Channel or wherever they hear it from. We're going to create some lag. I may whiff it, but we're going to have tremendous lag. But
right.
It's simply, I guess I saw the demonstration years ago. It's like where the snap of a bullwhip comes from the handle being ahead of the end, and then the handle stopping and it going past it to create the snap or the power. And I think that's what we have to keep in mind, that we really don't want to force the lag. A lot of it is in our setup and making sure that we create a complete backswing to get the club. What I see a lot is they try to create lag from a position that they never had it. They never got the club in a position to create it. They never finish their backswing. They don't rotate fully, and they don't get in a position for lag to be able to create. So it almost will create it based on what you're doing. And as long as you're fully rotating and you're coming on through, you didn't hear a lot of conversation about lag until a number of years ago. We started moving into body releasing and rotating through the ball to create power. And if they'll finish their backswings, what we talk as much as anything else, complete your backswing, get in the proper ready position, set position at the top of the swing to create some of these things. It's very similar to we talk about the setup. You can't maintain balance unless you have it. You can't create lag until you get in a position to create it. And then what we try to do is simply to try to get the person to make sure that the shaft of the club gets to the ball, the sensation of the shaft of the club getting to the ball before the club head gets there. And if you can get that sensation, you'll get as much lag as your golf swing will create.
And I think, again, it goes to what I was saying about with the shoulders. The same thing happens with the lag. People have been listening for years now, to maintain that angle, to maintain that wrist angle, to create that lag. So what a lot of amateurs do is, like you said, they rotate through with their body, and subconsciously they're holding off the club intentionally, and then they end up spinning out, or all kinds of things happen.
Yes.
And the club head, like you said, is so far behind that by the time they come through impact, the club head's nowhere near the ball.
Right.
And it's almost impossible for it to catch up. So it's a natural movement that happens as a result, as you said, being in the right positions, completing the backswing. These things happen. It's not a conscious thing that you actually have to physically hold the club off. It will do it naturally if you swing it properly.
Correct.
Just as you demonstrated with the bullwhip. So this is something that I think, unfortunately, and I blame, I blame obviously television and some of the top instructors when they explained it. I think they had the right intention, but I think they confused a lot of golfers when they started really emphasizing things like the lag, because people, I think, really misunderstood what they were getting at. They were just trying to explain that lag is what gives you the power, but they were giving the impression, well, I need to maintain it, I need to hold off, and I think people understood that it's a natural movement as a result of doing correctly throughout the golf swing. Great points, Clint. Thank you. John, back to you, and this one's from Justin Rose. He talks about the weight shift. We talked, I know, a little bit about it before. Getting that shaft leaning forward at impact with your hands ahead of the club head and the club face stable isn't as simple as just leaning the shaft forward. It actually involves your whole body. The key is to shift 90% of your weight to your front foot on your downswing. Again, depending on which left-handed or right-handed, depending on what your right front foot is going to be. But this is something that I think a lot of amateur golfers don't get either, is they don't understand that there is a natural weight shift that happens as a result of swinging the club. It's not a forced movement. Touch base on that a little bit too.
Yes, there's actually two shifts in golf. You have a shift and then a turn, and then a shift and a turn in a golf swing, in a good golf swing. You're moving, so there's a little bit of side to side, a lot of turning going both ways. And the weight shift is, in my opinion, is if you're going to describe the golf swing as a hamburger, the weight shift is the meat. I mean, if you look, you can talk about lag, you can talk about transition, all good players shift their weight. They don't stand still. They're not flat-footed. They're shifting and rotating. And that shift and rotation starts with obviously a good setup and a good grip, and we've talked about that. And obviously you have to make a big turn going back, using your upper body to create, to kind of wind up. But the weight shift is so critical. In my opinion, you cannot tell someone to shift their weight. the only way you can learn to shift your weight, you either have it naturally, and some people do, and the people that have it naturally are the people when they were a kid who could pick up a ball and throw it a long way, or they could skip rocks and throw rocks. They were always throwing things. They're always shifting their weight. They're used to doing things like that. Or you can learn it. And if you don't have a natural weight shift, the only way that, in my opinion, that you can learn it is through drills. And I have a lot of drills out there on YouTube. They're called the tap and go drill, the transition drill. They're active drills where you're actually stepping into the ball and hitting the ball. And that's the way you learn the transition. So for people who, like John Daly, who naturally has a transition, just a natural athlete, there's also guys out there on tour that maybe are not long hitters, but the people who have the weight shift, they're the ones that hit the ball far. And that's the number one key, I think, a big reason why a lot of the players who win out there win on a consistent basis is because the game is turned into a power game. They really don't care anymore about whether they're in the fairway or the rough. If they're hitting it out there far, that's what they're after, and then they just wedge it on the green and go from there. So creating weight shift, in my opinion, it's a dynamic motion that you can't read about it, you can't talk about it. It's like me. It'd be like Fred Astaire going up to the average person and trying to talk to them about how to dance. You have to have the rhythm and the timing, and it's an active motion in the golf swing. And so the best way to learn this, if you don't have it naturally, and there's a lot of the students who come to me who don't have this naturally, I'm a big believer in drills. And I know at times people don't like doing the drills, but I tell them, if you're going to have a transition, if you're going to learn to shift your weight, you've got to be more active in your golf swing where you actually, if you have to step into the ball or do the tap and go drill, some of those other active drills, and there's a lot more out there than those two, then that's how you really are going to create power in your golf swing.
Well said. And yeah, again, everybody has a different rhythm. Some people have a very natural rhythm. I had a friend of mine years ago. He's no longer with us, but never took a golf lesson in his life, and he could just step up there and hit it a mile and dead straight, and just had a natural swing, natural rhythm, and he just shifted his weight beautifully. And it used to make the rest of us sick because we had to do it the old-fashioned way, but actually working for it. It came natural for him. So that just sort of helps to prove your point. Clint, this one here, I agree a little bit with this one here, but and you'll understand why in a second. This is from Michelle Wee, and she talks about narrow focus. And what she's talking about is focusing on the ball, and what she means is really focusing. In her case, what she does as a dress is she picks out a single dimple and doesn't lose sight of it until the golf ball leaves the club face. So in other words, she's eyeballing a dimple, steadies her body, keeping her lower to the ball, and prevents from her lifting her torso through the hitting zone. I don't know about you, but my eyesight's not that great. I don't know if I could focus on a single dimple, but I think I get the gist of what she's trying to say. Put it in perspective, if you wouldn't mind, really what she's trying to say here. That was for Clint. Oh, I think Clint, I'm sorry. That looked like we lost Clint. Clint, I don't know, did you hear that question, or do I need to repeat it?
No, I heard it. Am I with you, Ted?
Yeah, you're back now. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you had dropped.
Okay. Yeah, you lost me there for a minute. Yeah. No, I heard the question, and my comment was I can't even see the name on the ball now, much less a dimple. But I guess if it's something for her to focus on to try to solve what she perceives as being the weakness in her swing. Okay? Mm-hmm. So if her focusing on that dimple helps her stay down through the ball longer, and they have identified that as being her kind of weakness in her swing and the things that creates inconsistency, I don't see anything wrong with that. I tend to, when I putt, I try to see where the ball's sitting. I don't focus on the ball. I want to see the spot where the ball was sitting before I look forward. That's just the way I try to stay focused on making a complete stroke. I want to be able to, to stroke it, hold my finish, see the spot where the ball was sitting, and then I'll look to see where it's going. So I don't want to call it a crutch, I think it's just something that she's discovered that helps her create a more consistent swing and to solve the weakness in her swing. So I really don't see anything wrong with it. I wouldn't teach anybody to do that. But I don't see where it would be a problem for her, because it's something she's discovered that can help her with her golf swing. But like I said, I honestly wouldn't teach a person to be that focused on the dimple on the ball. I'd prefer them to be more focused on staying balanced and turn on the ball. Yeah.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And I found it when I was reading through a lot of these before we came live tonight. I looked at that one. That was one that sort of stood out. And I know I've heard a lot of teachers talk about, for instance, when you're using an iron, not to be focused on the back of the ball, but rather look at the front of the ball in order to make sure that you're sort of going through the shot. I've heard teachers use that example as where to focus, and also the opposite is true when you're using a driver. In that case, because it's more of an upswing. You're not hitting down the ball as you are with your irons. Then again, you're looking more at the back of the ball. So I've heard those analogies used before, but as I said, and I think you agree, I'm lucky if I can see whether I'm hitting a Titleist or a Callaway anymore, because I can't read it from a dress position, at least not without my glasses. So that's another story.
Yeah, it's just one of those things that works for her, but maybe not for anybody else.
Right, and I think as long as really what I took away from it myself is I think you have to be focused to a point, and I think if that's a single focus that keeps her balanced and doing what she needs to do, as opposed to thinking about all different types of swing moves and swing thoughts, and that's just one that sort of keeps her centered and balanced, then I agree with that as well. John, John, this one's from Ernie Els, and he talks about the left arm connection. The connection between your left arm, your grip, and your club head that you establish at address isn't just good. Actually helps you to make a simple backswing without worrying about the swing plane and path. What are your thoughts about that? We often hear about maintaining that triangle, and particularly, keeping that arm, that left arm, sort of pinned to cover the logo on the shirt. I've heard that used as an example. With your left bicep. What are your thoughts about keeping it connected to your body like that?
I don't teach that. When I look at a triangle has three sides. So I don't say, well, we're only going to focus on one side of the triangle. It's the whole triangle. When I teach someone in the takeaway, I agree with him. I don't teach swing plane either. There's no such thing as a swing plane. There's a lot of planes in the golf swing. There is a path to your golf swing, and the path will be determined by a lot of things. Number one, the club that you have. A driver path is going to be different than a putter path. But it doesn't matter whether you're hitting a 3-foot putt or a 300-yard drive. I want a student to start their golf swing with their back and shoulders. I want them to use their back and shoulders. So that's the base of the triangle. Then you have the left arm as a side and the right arm as a side. I would never have people move the sides. I would have them move the base. And so if you can learn to move the base, because the problem is if you focus on the left arm, you're going to start manipulating the club face one way or the other. You'll either shut it or you'll fan it open. One of those two things. Very rarely are you going to be able to take it back perfectly and keep the club face from over exaggerating. So I try to get people to use my students to use their back and shoulders, very much like Jack Nicklaus. And Ernie Els has got a beautiful golf swing. It's amazing when you're talking about the Michelle Wee and Ernie Els and a lot of these players. Keep in mind that a lot of these players that you're talking about have God-given abilities. They're able to do things that the average person, just because of how they were created, that are so, their rotation and all those things, they're able to naturally do. So they don't have to focus on those things. So they can focus on these little minor details, like looking at a dimple in the ball or, your left arm, keeping it connected to your chest. Whereas if you tell that information to the average golfer, it's going to make them worse. So I agree with Clint in that, in that regard as well. So I try to get people to not focus on one arm. You have two arms. And so I want my students to use their back and shoulders, and once you turn your back and shoulders, both arms are going to move naturally. So you don't need to focus on the arms. Focus on turning the shoulders and the back, and your swing path will be where it should be every time.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I understand what Ernie was talking about there. I think it's just a matter of being connected so that everything's moving away together. I think that's really what a lot of the pros that use that sort of analogy are really talking about is to sort of stay connected. But again, sort of I hate to use this expression, but devil's in the details. And I think sometimes that when people hear these explanations that a lot of the pros give, it's not that it's not right or wrong. It's just that sometimes it allows the amateur golfers that don't really understand to focus on something specific. And when they get sort of hyper-focused on something, whether it be the leg, trying to force that move, or weight shift, again, trying to force it, they're not letting the natural rhythm and movement of their body sort of take over. So you have to be very careful when you're listing things to make sure it's really explained and not necessarily always take it literally. It's just a way of helping you to create a feel, if you will, in some cases. Clint, the last question of this group here, anyways, is for you, and it's from, or I shouldn't say from, but Jason Day brings this point, and he talks about swinging wide to narrow. And he states here, wide swings are powerful swings, but simply tracing a wide arc won't help you add speed. The trick to take the club back with your left arm extended and keep the grip as far away from your head as possible, then snap the grip down close to your body at the start of the downswing. So basically what he's saying is to take it back with a wide swing arc, and then as you're coming into your downswing, then you're sort of almost like a tucking in, bring it close to help generate that speed. What are your thoughts here? Again, is this something that really people need to focus on, or is it something that should be happening naturally if everything else is put into its proper perspective?
Wow, that's a good one there. Just to kind of tag on a little something before we get on this one, is that you have to be very careful, I think, to understand that what people like Ernie Els or whatever are saying is not necessarily exactly what's happening, it's what it feels like to them. So they're describing the feel of their golf swing, not necessarily the technical aspects of it. And I think that some of what Jason Day is saying has some of that as well, but we have to keep in mind something here, that the average golfer that we're teaching every day is not anywhere close and as a physical condition as these players are. They're not as flexible. They're not as strong. Many times they're not as big, but mainly flexible. A Jason Day can take the club head, maintain control of the center, rotate his body, and extend his left shoulder joint and arm and club extremely wide. Okay? You try to get the average player to do that, and somebody's going to have to help them up in the morning. They're not going to be able to move because their body is not capable of creating that. So what happens is when they try to do that, if their body and the shoulders particularly are not flexible enough to make that rotation and extension, they're going to move sideways. They're going to sway off the ball, without a doubt. And we've all seen it where I'm going to get this real wide arc, I'm going to create all this lag, and all of a sudden the center of their body's moved 2 feet to the right. Yep. And there's no way they're going to repeat that coming back down. So again here, I think we have to get the average golfer to understand we need to be able to do some certain things. We need to be able to move the club properly down the path, as John said, maintain some control of the club face, move your body through the ball, and then your body will dictate how much of these other things you can do. Certainly the further away we can extend the club away from the center of our body on the backswing and bring the tightness back in, that gives us better lag. Certainly that's going to generate more speed. That's simple science. The question is whether the average player can actually accomplish that. And what they do is they go out and waste a lot of time, effort, and money trying to accomplish some of these things, to when they need to evaluate what they're capable, what their body will give them, and try to maximize that. If they want to do the things that Jason Day and Ernie Els and all these people do as far as extension, they need to get into a fitness program first. Get the body as flexible as they can, and then go in that direction. But we see so many people on the tee as well as y'all do that have gotten this tip. They're going out. They've taken lessons. They're doing this, and they do misinterpret what's being told. They miss the point of this is what it feels like. And unfortunately and fortunately on both sides, we all have a video camera in our pocket now. We got little tripods we can set them up on, and we're going to take pictures of me getting this big extension. And when I don't see it, I keep trying, get more and more and more, and we're just not going to achieve that. So we kind of tend to want to think sometimes you have to just take what you got and make it work today. Then if that's not good enough, you got to get yourself ready to be better. And so with that tip, I would be a little bit suspect of the average player really being able to do any of that. So I'm not so sure it's a good service for them to leave that as a tip. I think that there needs to be a little bit more explaining going on with that particular tip. That's just the way I see it.
Yeah, it's the other thing too is I think it really comes down to feel. And, we see a lot of different drills. For instance, a lot of us have used, the towel drill where, for those of you who are not familiar with that, where the towel goes underneath your arms, and it's really to help stay connected. And, a lot of people think that I'll do a full swing with that. And it's not meant to. It's meant to do really, not even really a three-quarter. And it's just really to help you stay connected. But what oftentimes I'll see is people will try to do a full swing, and instead of actually rotating, they're actually just twisting their torso, and they're snatching that club back inside so much. And then what I see them doing is when they've removed the towel and they try to do a normal swing, again, they're sort of clenching those arms so tight into their body that they're not actually rotating properly. They're just basically twisting their body. So they're not really, again, they're misunderstanding the purpose of the drill. The drill is just to create a feel and understanding that you want to have a feeling of connection with your body. And so when you're swinging the club, everything's sort of turning and connect, together to a certain degree. Right.
Well, I think John would agree with this as well. I'll jump back in real quickly. Is not all drills are created equal. I mean, if you're not having a problem with staying connected and you're using that drill, you may be missing the real weak point in your golf swing that you need to be working on. So I think we have to be real careful that this is not just a big generic drill that we all ought to do. And I know John does this. These drills are specific to your particular problem at the time, not just something that everybody ought to use.
Right, exactly. Well, it's been interesting to. When we look at where instruction has, sort of started from and how it's sort of mutated, if you will, for lack of better words, over the years, a lot of changes have happened, and we've seen, a more modern swing, Clint, as you pointed out, compared to what we used to see people like Ben Hogan and some others used to do, and the way the grip has changed. And there's been a lot of changes. Some of it has been a result of technology. Some of it has just been through advancements with the videography and so forth, being able to see what actually is going on in biomechanics. And the problem is it's very, very confusing. And I think the rule of thumb that I always try to look at is and go by is I want the person to swing what's natural for them. I don't want forced movements. There's certainly things that have to be consistent. Obviously, their address position. But again, if you're dealing with somebody like John that's 6'4" and I'm the same, and you're dealing with somebody that's 5'9", there are going to be differences how they set up to the ball. I mean, certain things are going to look the same, but their knee flex is not going to be as much as somebody that's taller. So there's a lot of different variables, and I think when you try to put everybody in one mold, I think it can sometimes be very, very difficult and confusing because you'll get people that will force positions in order to feel like they have to be like that person that they're watching, on TV on the PGA Tour or the LPGA Tour, and sometimes taking these drills literally to the point that they're trying to, again, force or mimic certain movements when really all the player's just trying to do is, as you said, Clint, was really to describe a feel, how they're feeling in the moment and maybe using some drills to help bring that home. But I think it's something that players have to sort of experiment a little bit, and they have to be willing to, think about things. And if you're, I think one of the biggest problems too, and you guys may have experienced this, I'm sure many times over the years, is one of the biggest problems with students when they come for a lesson is they don't always ask a lot of questions. They sort of take it as the gospel. You're telling them something and they nod their head like they understand, but a lot of times they really don't. And, I always try to encourage students to say, look, this is something you've explained to me, and but I don't really understand exactly. So can you, explain it a little bit more or show me exactly what you mean? So I think that's something that we have to do as instructors to make sure that we're doing that. Any final thoughts before we go, guys? And I'm going to give you a chance just to let the folks know if they want to reach out, how they can go about doing that. John, do you want to go first? Any final thoughts before we close off the panel?
Yes, I really enjoyed tonight's discussion because for all the listeners out there, I would suggest that when you get instruction, try to find yourself a qualified PGA golf instructor, someone that you ask friends if you're looking to get in the game or whatever. Don't always listen to what better players say they're doing, because Clint's exactly right. They're already doing the main the reason that they're good is because they have good body dynamics and they have good setups and they have good grips and they can create natural power, and then they can get into the minor stuff. Don't focus on all that little minor stuff. Learn the basic stuff, and the best way to do that is to go to someone where you can get objective, consistent instruction and get yourself in a lesson plan where you're not don't expect to do it in one lesson, 5 to 10 lesson plan or something like that, and do it over the summer, and that's where you'll see the improvement occur. But if you just take a tip that you read or you take a sentence of someone that you've heard on television say that they're working on, like Tiger Woods or whoever's being interviewed, and you go out and try to do it, you're asking for disaster, in my opinion. So yeah. I would definitely encourage that. But Ted and Clint, I've really enjoyed tonight's discussion.
It's always good.
For the listeners out there, if they want to get in touch with me, there's several ways. I'm on. I have videos on golfswing.com/John Decker. My first name is spelled Jon. But if you're on Facebook, I'm on at John Decker Golf Instruction, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And I also do a podcast with Dr. Angelica Napolitano, and it's the Golf Swing RX, the prescription for your game. And we've had I think we've done like 13 or 14 of those. And anywhere you download your podcast, you can find us there. And my book, Golf is My Life, Glorifying God Through the Game, it's sold on Barnes & Noble websites, Amazon, and I found out this week it's also on Walmart's. You can download or you can purchase it at Walmart as well through walmart.com. So, but again, thanks again, Ted, for all you do for us and allowing us to be on your show.
I appreciate it, and congratulations on getting into another avenue with your book. I think that'll open up some even more doors for you as well. And thank you, John, for all that you do. Clint, what about you? How can the folks reach you, and anything particular that you want to share tonight with what's going on out in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, Eric, it's all good. We're going to get through this thing. But John, it's always a pleasure. I mean, you bring some insight that's quite interesting and falls right into what good instructors do. And we're in the process of redoing some of our sites, so they can always get me at clintgolf001@yahoo.com right now is the easiest way to get a hold of me. But let me point out something to the listeners. I said that I always encouraged my students to parrot back said. If you're taking a lesson, take the instructor's time and say, let me tell you what I heard you say, just to verify.
Mm-hmm.
Now, most of us has been at this for a time or have had communications improvements over the years. We've gotten better at communicating our ideas. We understand it. But sometimes some of the instructors may not, but you're doing them a service by saying, now just let me tell you what I heard you say. And that way y'all can, you and the instructor, your teacher, can stay on the same page as far as your long-term genuine improvement in what you're trying to do. And John's absolutely correct. It's not a one-time deal. This is a long learning process. So you want to make sure that when you're working with a teacher that you intend to work with for a period of time, you don't want any confusion on what they're trying to teach you. So I encourage you to pare it back to them what you're working on and what you think you heard them say to make sure that you're on the same page. And Ted, just as always, we do appreciate you letting us participate. I mean, this is an ego builder if there ever was one, and we certainly we certainly love to be able to participate with you every time. Thank you.
Is that for me or for you?
For both of us. I mean, what the heck, you know? We'll share it a little bit.
I appreciate it. So, well, guys, as always,
you're welcome.
Thank you very much, guys, for always bringing your best onto the panel discussions and some good words of wisdom for everybody to listen to. So thank you, and I look forward to you guys next time. All right, take care and have a good weekend. Stay safe.
Take care, John. We'll see you, Ted. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Clint. Thanks, Ted.
All right, that was my guest panelists on Coach's Corner, John Decker and Clint Wright, both a couple of great PGA professionals, and definitely some words of wisdom, if you will. All right, I'm going to introduce, because I see they're both ready, I'm going to introduce my special guests this evening. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them and just a little bit about what we're going to talk about, and then I will bring them on live. These two gentlemen actually met this January at the PGA Merchandising Show a few months ago, and they have a very interesting product and some other things that are going on here more recently, and we're going to talk about that tonight. And first one is Ted Kesten. He is one of the founders of Ranger Ready Repellent. He has for 30 years of experience in the fragrance and flavor industry, where his companies have successfully commercialized scents and flavors for millions of consumers to enjoy. Ted's expertise in scent design, compounding, and supplying chain profitability is what drives their belief that they can continue to make great product and ask for a premium price. He earned his bachelor's at Emory University and his MBA in finance from Stern School of Business in New York University. And also joining him is Chris Fuentes, who is the co-founder as well. And he was raised during the Cold War in Germany, where his father served to protect Americans' interests. His extensive experience as a lifestyle brand marketer is a catalyst behind Ranger Ready's strategy in consumer-inspired products. His career started on the professional tennis circuit, working with great brands like Adidas, Nike, and Head to win in tennis. His career turned to media marketing, where he spent 7 years working on international editions of Time and the emerging powerhouse People. Much of Chris's understanding of how to build better products and brands came from 14 years as a marketer at VF Corporation. And I'm going to tell you just a little bit about Ranger Ready, and then I'll bring the guys on. They created Ranger Ready repellents after the lives of their families were forever changed by Lyme disease. As more and more family and friends were being affected, they realization of global warming was increasing the spread of ticks and mosquitoes. We knew that they needed to create something that would protect future generations from the long-term illnesses associated with ticks and insects. So I'm going to let them talk a little bit more about that, but please welcome my very special guests this evening, Ted Kesten and Chris Fuentes. Good evening, guys, and welcome to Golf Talk Live.
Thanks, Chris. This is Ted. I'm sorry. Thanks, Ted. This is Ted. Chris is also on the line.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, we've had too many
Chris, how
Teds
are you
in the
doing?
business, including Teddy. I'm doing well, thank you.
That's right. Yeah, Teddy helped put this together down at the show, and actually she was listening to me speak with somebody else that shared an interest and thought that this would be a good opportunity for you guys to come on. So let me sort of backpedal a little bit and maybe just give a little background on how the two of you met, and then how did sort of Ranger Ready sort of come to fruition as a result of that. Why don't we start with you, Ted, and then Chris, you can add in as well.
Okay, so briefly, being in the fragrance industry, I was very involved in developing fragrance candles for many, many years. So we knew a little bit about the candle manufacturing process, and through various contacts, I've been exposed to the insecticide industry. And when the opportunity arose that we were speaking with some companies, particularly a company in the Midwest in the U.S. that was making pyrethroids and pyrethrins from chrysanthemum plants. They had a byproduct, and we tried to make a candle with it. And unfortunately, we ran into the stiff regulations in America. So the project of making a proper insect repellent via a candle died. And then my good fortune was to meet Chris at about that time, and we started talking about alternatives. So we became aware of a product that's been widely used in Europe for 30 years. The active ingredient is called picaridin, and at a 20% concentration, the product lasts for 12 hours and is extremely effective against both ticks and mosquitoes and about 4 or 5 other biting insects. So I'm a product guy, so I run factories. I ran factories in 5 different countries. Chris is a marketer, and it was a good opportunity, I think, for both of us to join forces at a moment when Chris was making a change as well. And that's how it kind of started. Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think 3 years goes by quickly, as they say. And I was listening to your show earlier on, how technical golf is, and launching a brand is very technical. Mm-hmm. And we spent the last 3 years kind of getting ready for this moment to launch a brand into what we recognized was a world of growing diseases, of Lyme disease and other things. And we just kind of felt like it was a good opportunity to join kind of marketing and product. And we saw this better ingredient in Europe that was being used widely, and we said, this is it. This is a good opportunity for us. So that's how the partnership was born just 3 years ago.
And Chris, let me ask you something just a little bit, because again, as I was reading, in through your bios, Nat, I mentioned the fact that about Lyme disease, and for the listeners out there that maybe are not, for those of us that have been around for a little while, we may be more familiar, but for some of our younger listeners that maybe aren't sure what Lyme disease is and sort of how it's caused and why it is something to be concerned about, maybe you can touch a little bit on that, Chris, and then again, Ted, if you want to add into the discussion as well.
Sure.
Well, we don't have enough time in the show, and that's kind of the beginning of that discussion. And it's really simple math. 400,000 people a year last year, and probably this year will probably be more, will be bitten by ticks, and they cause Lyme disease.
Right.
And Lyme disease is kind of a moniker for 16 different vector-borne diseases in ticks that include much more severe diseases than Lyme disease and Powassan virus and viruses that are similar, in their veracity as what we're experiencing today. So we've been kind of understanding that about 500,000 people in the United States will be bitten by ticks, and about 100,000 of those, 20%, a little bit more, will be affected long term by tick-borne diseases. So we kind of thought this is not a good path to be on, and that's kind of the beginning of the journey that we started, which was, and that's why golf is so important to us as a sport, because golfers are susceptible, like gardeners, frankly, and we talk about gardening being a high contact sport. Golf is a high contact sport with ticks, and we've learned a lot about how ticks, how they rest and how they want to bite people, and how they grow and how they're susceptible to weather, and how they're carried by birds and by other species. And what we realized was it's a bigger problem than we all realized. And I know the problem we're facing today is much bigger than what we saw.
Sure.
We could all forecast, but ticks and Lyme disease are a real issue for folks who are out playing golf every day and actually being outside every day, and that's where we focused our energy.
I mean, if I could just link it to golf for a moment. I think a lot of the modern course design is starting to increase the use of fescue and longer grass for obvious reasons.
Right.
It doesn't require maintenance. It's more natural, if you will. No chemicals are applied to that area. And that becomes a place for our balls to get to visit, and that becomes a place where people start walking through. And it's not just the players; it's the caddies. It's occasionally the maintenance staff as well who are brushing by it when they're gardening around the fescue. that is where animals live, and that is where ticks live. Because ticks are not just on deer. I mean, people associate Lyme disease with deer for some reason, but in fact, it's all the mammals. It's mice, it's rats, it's squirrels, it's even songbirds that carry the tick that has the disease in it all over the country, and it's become a real issue. I know personally, I won't go out on the golf course without using, and I play a lot of golf. My Ranger Ready is in my bathroom, and I apply it before I get dressed, and I do it religiously.
Well, and you know, Ted, you bring up a really a great point, because you know when we go to the golf course, we've gotten used to, you know, we've been told about putting on sunscreen and, you know, prevented from UV rays and all of this other stuff to make sure you're lathering up with this, but you don't really think about, a lot of people don't think about protecting against other issues in the environment like ticks and mosquitoes and so forth. And so we don't think about stuff like that. And I think one of the things, and Ted, I'm going to let you start this time, and or either one, whichever wants to chime in. And I know you touched on it a little bit before, but what particularly makes your product unique? I mean, obviously there are other products on the market that are very, very similar in the sense that they, you know, claim to do this or do that, but you guys have made a point of putting together a product that's much more unique than what else is on the market. So talk a little bit, maybe explain a little further detail why it is more unique and why it's a better overall product environmentally.
I just want to emphasize one additional point, which you mentioned mosquitoes, and I'm not sure everyone in America recognizes that mosquitoes carry disease as well. They are very, very. In fact, the number one killer of mankind is a disease delivered by a mosquito, which is malaria. Today, dengue fever infects literally millions of people every year in Southeast Asia, and unfortunately, it's been detected in Florida as well. So mosquitoes are a problem. Standing water anywhere on a golf course is a breeding ground for mosquitoes, and so it's not just about being the nuisance of no-see-ums and gnats. It's a serious disease issue and health concern for the entire country. So coming back to why Ranger Ready, why is picaridin 20% the way we prepare it better? We looked at what was going on, and we saw that the use of insect repellent and the sales of insect repellent were growing at a compounded annual rate of over 7% per year. Yet, the incidence of disease was growing at over 20% per year. So something wasn't adding up. Products being purchased, but not being used correctly. And it's all about DEET. DEET dominates our market, and no one likes using it. It's greasy, it smells, it's a plasticizer. They spray it on their shoes, and they go out. And that's generally, it's just not the way it's been designed to be used. It needs to be put on your skin. Yet no one wants to put it on their skin. So our task was to create a better experience. So we created 4 fragrances. We created a trigger pump and a normal press pump, a trigger spray and a press spray. We have fully recyclable packaging. And these pumps will pump upside down so you can get the back of your leg and the back of your neck. We think it's an easier exercise. We're not using aerosols. We're not spraying isobutane on our skin. We're putting on a useful product that has a nice scent that will disappear relatively quickly. And if you don't want any scent at all, we have Scent Zero. So it's an effective, and as I said, picaridin works better than DEET. And it's safer for you. It's not a neurotoxin. It's not a plasticizer. It's not going to damage your gear. It's not going to ruin the grips on your golf clubs. It's not going to ruin your shirt. It's a proper product. It's made with better ingredients, and it works. I mean, it truly does work.
You know, and that's
funny.
Interesting. Yeah, go ahead, Chris, please.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Ted. Go ahead.
No. All I was going to say is, Ted, you raised a really interesting point, and that is, you know, a lot of the other products on the market, they are very greasy. A lot of people don't, as I said, use it as they should be using it. They don't want to put it on their skin because it doesn't feel good, number one, but also they're concerned with some of the chemicals that are being used in it and their toxicity. So a lot of people, I mean, they're already putting other products on there and think, well, I don't want to put this on there too because that's going to make it worse. So they don't use it properly, and they're afraid because it's, again, some of the chemicals that are going into some of these products, they've heard and read some of the issues with it. So that's an important thing, especially in this day and age. That was all I just wanted to point out. Chris, please go ahead.
Well, I mean, your point's exactly right, Ted, which is people they want better ingredients. They want stuff to perform. And DEET, which is the active ingredient, which is widely used for insect repellent in the United States, was developed by the United States military in the 40s. And it's pretty toxic. And we're working with the military, for example, right now, because the guys who spray DEET on their scopes, and the scopes are,
right.
$6,000 now, they're gone, or their iPhone watches or their iPhones. And if a guy's putting bug spray on himself in the field and he sprays your iPhone, it's gone. And so, that kind of transition away from we don't have to do that, or satisficing, which is, I need to protect myself from ticks and mosquitoes, but I'm going to satisfice by spraying oily stuff on myself. That's kind of the next generation of product that we developed, and it's been around for 30 years, so it's not something that it's been actively used by the World Health Organization, and picaridin is a really safe ingredient, and that's why we brought it to market in the United States. It's been here for 15 years, and it's just been undermarketed, and we realized that people, especially moms, and especially people who are professionals who have to use the product every day, the tour caddies on the Pro Tour, they used over 1,000 bottles of our product last year. Many of the caddies on the tour use our product because it doesn't ruin their grips, it doesn't ruin their golf clubs. It does. The golfers, they use a lot of synthetic material. If you spray DEET on your shirt, and Nike, Under Armour, you can name all the brands; they're all the same. If they have synthetic material in it, it will just eat it up, and literally, kind of 3 washes, you're done. And many of the caddies came back and said, my shirts, or the golfers were saying my shirts are completely ruined by DEET. And we said, well, just use our product. And they came back and said, I can keep my shirt for the whole season. That's a difference that makes it. And that experience is something that we realized was, and the difference between actually putting the bug spray on and actually not using it is saving your life, because you really do need to put bug spray on if you're going to be a golfer, a regular golfer. You need to put bug spray on every day before you go out and play golf.
Yeah, well said. I know here, being in Florida, I mean, we have, probably more insects than I've ever seen in a lifetime. And I know that Ranger Ready may not be designed specifically to get rid of some of them, but you're exactly right. When you're out on the golf course, and Ted, as you pointed out, when you're playing a lot of golf, you need that protection, not just from the sun, but you need protection from other things in the environment like insects, because not just because they can be a nuisance and an inconvenience, when you're standing over your ball and something's buzzing around you, but also because they carry a lot of disease. And people get sick and whatnot for various reasons, and that's just one more. And obviously you guys are very passionate about this particular product and what it's been able to do. And the fact you wanted to make sure also that it's safe for consumer use, and that's obviously important as well.
From a technical point of view, I just wanted to highlight a point for you, just to give you an idea of why the product is safe. You need to apply sunscreen every 90 minutes. Every brand says the same thing. Put it on every 90 minutes.
Right.
What your viewers may not know, it's not because the sun's baking it off. It's because your skin is absorbing it, which is what your skin does. Our product goes on your skin and stays for 12 hours. So we don't need to put nearly as much, as compared certainly to sunscreen, but also as compared to DEET. 20% application of picaridin lasts for 12 hours versus a 30% application of DEET. So, and when it's a big difference. The first person who joined our group was a dermatologist. Once he learned about the technical specs of this product, he says, "Okay, I'm in. I will be your spokesperson." So, I was heartened by that. I really was.
Well, and that says a lot too, because obviously, their professional reputation They have to be mindful of that. They don't want to be out. I mean, we always see people promoting products, and we understand how that works. But again, when you're somebody that's in the medical profession like that, you don't want to, put your name to a product that is harmful to people, because that doesn't look good for you, and it's not helping the product at all. And I think in this day and age, guys, I think this is something that people are becoming, we're still kind of slow to get off the ground at times, but we're becoming more and more conscious of our environment and what we're putting into it. And we for years we've talked about aerosol products and how harmful they've been, and so we've made changes there. And then we've talked about other things. And this is an area obviously that you guys have recognized that for years, and this is no fault to people that have developed some of the other products earlier on, but they did what they thought was right. But as we progress as a society, we're learning that some of these things that we thought once were good for us and were helpful are actually more harmful. So we've always got to kind of be moving forward. And I like the fact that you guys, even though anybody can use this product, I like the fact that you guys have sort of tied it to the golf industry, much like people that garden and landscapers and things like that are outside all the time. These are the people that really need to be conscious of it, as you said, in the golf course for several hours. I appreciate that.
Ted, I think one of the things that, Ted and I are in our 60s, and we're thinking about retirement. We play more golf, we're gardening, we're outside more, we're doing more projects, which I'm not sure is a good idea, but we're trying to do them. And we realize that, as you're outdoors, and you can be bitten by a mosquito, but you're also, you're brushing the stuff away, and it's pretty easy to get bitten by a tick. And we know from research that most people are bitten by a tick 1 mile from their house. It's usually at their golf course or when they're taking their dog for a walk. It's a local thing. And what we want to do is we want to get people to understand that if you are going to go out and be in the environment outside, just wear repellent. It's pretty simple. It's just a simple ingredient, and you can play a great round of golf. And we talk about things you can do as a golfer. The first thing is put it on in the locker room. Don't go out and play. Don't even go to the practice range. Don't even get warmed up before you put repellent on, because you can be down on the 13th hole where that deep in the valley down there, where the whole golf course is not full of mosquitoes, but that one little corner has got plenty of mosquitoes or ticks, and you can be bitten. And one of the things we recommend is a lot of folks, they go to the clubhouse after and they have the 19th hole and they'll have a drink and they'll sit down. That's a perfect time for a tick to crawl up your leg and bite you. So go take a shower before you go to the clubhouse. Go literally take your clothes off, jump in the shower, check yourself out, throw your clothes in a plastic bag, and when you come home, put it in the dryer. It's just a routine. And if you do that regularly, you're just probably not going to be bitten by a tick, and you're not going to wake up in the middle of the night saying, what's that on my neck? And that's the point, is you can avoid all of this by just being kind of a cautious golfer, if that's the right term. And I would give up the $1.50 or my penalty stroke or my handicap to not go into fescue.
Yeah, I agree.
Pretty simple. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. Well, and guys, the other thing too, we see, and as you pointed out, especially here, it is all over, but especially here in the Southeast and that in Florida and some of the other states like Mississippi and Louisiana, where you have a lot of swampy water around, and of course they've built golf courses through it, so they have a lot of natural bodies of water that are stagnant, which is just a breeding ground for a lot of these different insects. And you think it looks beautiful, and you're out there walking, and it's just very scenic, but behind the bushes, so to speak, for lack of better words, there's a lot of little demons that are crawling around that can be very quite harmful to the body. So being prepared is you're exactly right. It doesn't take any time to apply this on. And I think I really like the fact, and I think going back to what I said earlier, this is probably one of the reasons why a lot of people avoid it, is because many other products, or most of the other products on the market, actually have a very unpleasant smell. People can tell you put on a bug spray, and they're just not very, so they don't want to do it, or it doesn't feel good. I like the fact that you not only offer some scented product, but you also offer no scent. So when people go out everybody's not looking at them saying, well, he's wearing bug spray or so forth. So they're not sort of getting wind of that. My other question I have for you guys is as far as commercial applications. And what I mean by that is, obviously you have this great products for consumers, whether they're playing golf or doing other outdoor activities. But do you also have, or are you planning on any sort of commercial applications? A lot of, golf courses and whatnot and other areas are spraying to control insects. Is there an opportunity to delve into that market as well, or is that something you're going to stay away from? That's for either one,
Ted,
sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, it's not an area that we're pursuing. It's, you're having to spray insecticide generally. So it's
basically
an environmental thing. I'm not sure we want to add that to the environment. Insects do play a role in nature generally, and I think just keeping them away from us is a better plan than trying to eradicate them.
Okay.
Literally millions of species have died already. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, our platform is around being conscious of the earth, and so one of the things we want to do is repel insects. We've developed a product that is you can spray on your clothing, and it's a common product called permethrin, and it's a very low percentage. You can spray it on your clothing, and it gives you 30-day protection from ticks and mosquitoes through 5 washes. So it's a pretty simple product. So if you take your golf clothing and spray permethrin, and then you use picaridin on your body as body-worn repellent, there's a really, really small chance you're going to be bitten by a tick or a mosquito. And I think that's kind of what we're trying to say is you don't have to spray the golf course. It's really hard to spray 15 acres of product of land and eradicate. And I think Ted's point is right. You can't really eradicate anything. We just want to push them away from us a little bit. And if you use the right body-worn repellents, if you use clothing-worn repellents, and if you use sunscreen, you're going to be fine on the golf course. You can play as much golf as you want and enjoy the game. And that's what we're trying to say is you don't have to really kind of impact the environment. You have to kind of look after it as a personal protective measure. Look after yourself and spray yourself and look after yourself, and you won't be bitten by a tick or a mosquito, and you can go on and play as much golf as you want, as good as badly as you play.
Well, and
as an interesting segue, if I can just say, that is our repellent industry, our repellent business, without a doubt. But we have made a recent pivot to selling hand sanitizer in case any of your listening audience is interested. So, and in that particular situation, we don't repel; we do eliminate the viruses and bacteria.
Perfect. Well, we're going to talk about that here. I know that you've done that, and we'll get into a little bit more. Let me just one final thing, just to comment about the repellent side. One of the things that Chris, that you pointed out, and I agree with that. I simply asked the question about commercial application if this was something that you were going to be working towards. But I agree with you. I think that the trick is we don't want to have something that's going to impact the environment. We just, many of these insects are pests, and it can be annoying when you're out there playing and doing outdoor activities, particularly golf. So you want just something to sort of keep them away, but you're not looking to do harm or wipe out a species or something like that. So I agree with you. I think that's a smart thing, and I think it's a great one. I think that's why I like your product even more, is the fact that you're not looking to impact the environment per se. You're looking to sort of make it a little bit more tolerable in certain situations. Go ahead.
Well, I think one of the number one issues is what bugs you most as a golfer. So we went to the PGA show. This is our second PGA show, but we talked to hundreds of golfers, and every guy comes up to us and says the same thing. He says, the mosquitoes and gnats and flies in my golf course are the worst everywhere. We say, okay, great. And they all say the same thing, which is something specifically bugs me. And your listeners know this, that these guys who have to wear fly strips on their hats. They do everything they can not to be bugged by mosquitoes and gnats and buffalo gnats, and especially in Florida, because Florida's got some really nasty buffalo gnats. Oh, yeah. They're terrible. And, what we realized is if you put Ranger Radio on your hat and you put Ranger Radio on your body, they don't bother you. So we kind of call it I'm not going to call it a 5-stroke advantage, but maybe a little stroke advantage, which is you don't have to worry about the bugs. And that's the story,
Well,
yeah,
confidence over the ball is everything, and there is some science to the idea that people, there are people who walk around and say, I don't get bitten by bugs, and they actually don't get bitten by bugs. So
exactly.
You have the confidence you're not going to get bit, they stay away.
Right, and that's the thing is, as I was pointing out earlier, and especially in an area like Florida or some of the other areas in the southeast that I mentioned, this is by far a big problem. And people don't realize that certain times of the year it's a little better than others. But yeah, when the gnats start coming out and then you got the mosquitoes rolling off of some of these wetlands, it's unbearable, especially certain times of the day. And you're out there and you're trying to enjoy it and you're swatting and trying to shoo them all away and you want to have something that's
exactly.
Going to alleviate that. But again, you're not looking to impact the environment with something negative, which a lot of these other products I know do. So that's one of the things I really appreciate, from your perspective, as you're trying to be conscious of that as well, and coming up with something that's not harmful, but at the same time is getting results. So I want to go back to what you mentioned a moment ago about the hand sanitizers. Obviously, we're all going through this, this difficult time in our history with this pandemic, and it's a global pandemic. It's not just unique to any one area. And, a lot of companies have decided to make some changes in the interim to help out and do some things. And you guys have done just that with the hand sanitizer. So just walk me through, and again, whoever wants to start off first and the other can add in. What was sort of the thought process? Was this something that came relatively quickly, or was this something that you had kind of in the back of your mind had been thinking about adding to your product line, and it just happened to be coincidental that it came out at this time, or what was the thought process?
Good.
Well, I'll jump in. Okay. It began 3 years ago when we said we're going to build Ranger Ready, and we said protection. And what is protection? And we actually didn't know. We thought it was sunscreen. We thought it was hand sanitizer. We thought it was repellent. And we were trying to build an opportunity around a brand. And we had no idea about COVID at that point. And we did have hand sanitizers in our plan. And honest to be, it was the beginning of March, and we sat as a team and said, it looks like we're going to have to close our kind of normal office down, and everybody's going to work from home. And we could see all the health warnings from China. We saw the CDC, and we saw all the warnings from Europe, and we were ahead of it by a long shot. And we realized at that point we're going to send everybody home. And the first week we worked from home, we kind of sat around and thought, we have to kind of figure out how to be a better bug spray company. And then on the Sunday of March 14th, we thought, how can we be a better hand sanitizer company? And, looking to build PPE and build the ability to kind of bring the right thing that we were doing, which is protecting people from disease. We thought we can do the same with hand sanitizer, and we actually did it. And our idea was built over basically 5 or 6 days, and we created a hand sanitizer that was approved by the FDA and ready to go to market, and we brought it to market in under a month.
Wow!
Actually, probably of all the things we've done as a team, and over the 3 years, it was the thing that kind of marked our kind of change as a company.
Well, and Ted, go ahead. Sorry if you want to add to.
What the incredible demand. I'm sure you're aware. But the people are just searching for these types of products. So we were fortunate that we had some raw material inventory that we could repurpose in the form of bottles and spray heads and a very, very good partner who could open up an FDA approved line for us and run the product. We ran 55,000 bottles our first run, and I think we have 1,000 bottles left, and we received the product 11 days ago. So it's just it's spectacularly in demand. And the only reason we're not still running is because it's very hard to get the bits and pieces. So
Sure.
we will have another run in the middle of May, and I think once a month we'll be able to continue to make product. But it's shocking out there, and obviously everyone's life has been impacted by this. And generally, we feel like behavior will change, and we hope that we can assist in making people feel a little bit more confident about going about their daily tasks. I mean, for me personally, the product sits in my automobile. And when I get out of the car, I put it on the driver's seat, so that when I come back to the car, it's not muscle memory yet, to put hand sanitizer on.
Right.
And so there it is. It's in my way. So now I put it on, and then I put it back. So it's as Chris said, we're in our 60s. So we got to do the memory hooks to make sure we behave correctly.
Well, I'm just a few years behind you, so yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm heading that way real fast myself. So, but I think it's really interesting. Obviously this is something that you had thought about for a few years, and obviously we didn't know what was, we didn't have the foresight of knowing what was coming down the pike. But obviously it was very good timing in a sense that it allowed you to come to market a little quicker than maybe what you originally had planned. Where do you see things as far now? Obviously, now that you've got it on market, it's been approved by the FDA. Is this something that's now going to become permanent part of your product line?
It is. As we grow the company, and we've learned that protection is protection, whether it's from viruses caused by ticks or mosquitoes, or protection from human to human. And we're trying to kind of learn that vernacular, if you will, the language. And we've now shipped thousands of orders and talked to consumers, and we've kind of learned what people are trying to achieve, which is they want to protect themselves. And hand sanitizer is a good, convenient way to do that. And it's interesting because it's about sleepy industries. If you think about repellents, repellents have been going along for 50 years, 60 years, kind of the same way.
Right.
And hand sanitizers have been doing the same things. And we talked to investors today, and we had a discussion with one of our investors, and we talked about the change in the world. And in an average month, a hand sanitizer is Googled 40,000 times a month. That's a very small number in the world of Google. And in February, it was Googled 450,000 times a month. That's a little bigger number, but not that big. In March, it was Googled 40.8 million times.
Wow.
And it's as a researcher and marketers and scientists and doing what we do, that number doesn't kind of compute. And we follow Google. We use Google as a pretty big vector of where we want to go and what we want to do as our marketing. And those kind of changes are abnormal. And what we're trying to figure out is how to kind of find what the new normal is. We don't pick up the flagstick at the hole. We don't touch things on the golf cart, and every cart is sprayed down. And as we play around the golf, what are the places where we can touch things? We deliver to golf courses giant bottles of hand sanitizer. These are big bottles. These are you can spray down a small kid, and knock them down. And as you kind of think about those things, you're kind of thinking about, well, I'm going to play golf, but I'm going to be clean about playing golf. And it's an interesting concept as we kind of transition that into, okay, I'm going to play around the golf, but I'm going to spray the machine when I put the credit card in, and I'm going to go to it's a lot of different components. So we're trying to figure out how to make everyday life a little more acceptable, and our products are about a better bug spray and also a better hand sanitizer, and kind of making you play golf and enjoy your life a little better. And if we can get to that point, and we're still working on it, that's the goal.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And just to go back to what you said a few moments ago, with a lot of industries that have been doing this for 50 or more years, I think the problem with a lot of industries is they kind of go with the status quo, if you will. In other words, they kind of stagnate in as long as it's working, as long as it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think the problem with that is there are so many changes that are happening not only in the environment but just in everyday life. And you're right. I think we are going to see some changes. Are there going to be huge drastic changes right away? No, but you may see things. We already got different ways of paying. Apple Pay and others where you're not even swiping your cards anymore. You're just holding it up. So I see a lot of banks and other big industry players like that even jumping faster on the bandwagon to have that type of setup where people aren't handing their credit cards to people and that sort of thing, because we can't all walk around for the rest of our lives with latex gloves on and hand sanitizer constantly. So there are going to have to be some societal changes, but it's good to know that companies like yourself and guys like yourself are really paying attention to consumers, because that's critical for any company. I don't care who it is. You have to pay particular attention to consumers and what their needs are, because they're changing all the time, especially in this day and age. And go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say that companies who have to kind of be in the industry, and one of your favorite golf companies actually bought a bunch of hand sanitizer from us, and I can assure you, if you lose all your golf balls, you can still assure you that company is going to produce more for you to to lose.
Right.
So.
Right.
Yeah. And Matt, you also have probably read that.
I can share a.
Well, I was just going to give you another silly fact of the current environment is that why does everybody want a dog? I don't know if you've heard that the shelters are literally run out of dogs, where they might move 3 dogs in a period of time. Now they're moving 300. It's unbelievable.
Right.
And of course, Chris and I, consider the dog to be one of the most elegant tick taxis that there are. So if you just got a new dog, don't let them in your bed ever.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, I concur with that. It's very interesting. I'm always interested in products and or services that do something that obviously legitimately provide a benefit. And that was when Teddy, of course, who handles a lot of your PR, approached me at the PGA show, as I mentioned earlier. It was very, very interesting because when she kind of gave me a little bit of the backstory before we met, I thought, hey, this would be something I'd like to have on the show, because it is an area, especially again where I am in Florida, a lot of people are concerned about. The bugs down here are a bugger, to say the least, and a lot of the products are very toxic that we typically get. So, it's nice to be able to bring to my listeners something that is a safe alternative to what's out there in the market, and that's effective, and they're not having to constantly reapply 50 times during a round of golf. They can reapply it once and be done with it and move on. And and the fact that you're not smelling like you've been in a chemical factory for the last few hours. So I think that's great, and it's good again for the environment. So what are there other things down the pike that you can share, or is there maybe a little bit too secretive? Are there other products or other things that you're looking to expand in addition to what you've already done that you can share, or is that for another time?
Well, I'd say, Ted, the first thing is I'm excited that we designed a product that was designed for police officers and rangers and military people who have to wear protection for 12 hours a day, and golfers can wear it. That's kind of the exciting thing is we designed it for those guys. They wear it, and golfers can use it. And so that our first step was actually get that part done, and we're really excited that we got that part done. There are new products in the pipeline. We have new biodegradable wipes, which are for use as you travel and you go around, and you can put them in your golf bag. We have a new product that's available with permethrin, which is you spray on your clothing, and we're excited that that's coming to market in the fall. And as you know, part of this is getting regulated by the FDA and the EPA and getting organized to kind of bring these products to market. But we've been pretty successful in getting them, to market quickly. And as we bring those to market, we'll share them with your listeners as we can. So
Sure.
Part of it staying ahead of the game and kind of staying ahead of the bugs and the ticks is kind of our goal.
Yeah, and that's, I think, something we can definitely all get behind. I can speak volumes on that one alone. Let me ask you, I guess, just a sort of a final question for those listeners that have been tuning into the show and they've been hearing a little bit about what it is that you guys do and what you've brought to market. What's the best way if they want to get more information? I know you have a website, so maybe you can share that. And obviously during this difficult time, it's probably a little harder to do things, but you're obviously still able to, I'm assuming, to fill orders on most of your products and that. What's the best way for them to learn more about the products and if they want to purchase some?
RangerReady.com. It's the easiest way to see us. Our warehouse is open. We have a small little team who's shipping every day, and if you put an order in today, it goes out tomorrow. So
Perfect.
It's part of being a small family business, if you will, and helping your listeners who are playing golf every day and trying to kind of keep their lives normal. You can, if you put an order in at RangerReady.com, we will ship it the next day, and you'll have it in a couple of days.
Perfect. Well, guys, I want to thank both of you for coming on tonight and sharing a little bit about your story, but also about your product. And I know you gave me a couple of bottles down at the show, and I have used some of it, and I can concur it definitely works, and it's a great product, and I highly recommend it for the listeners. Go to rangerready.com and start ordering yours today. But, guys, thank you very much, and please tell Teddy that, as things progress with some other new things coming down the pike when they're ready, maybe later in the season, if she wants to connect with me and have you come back on and pre-launch or what have you, I'm more than happy to have you back on the show. But I appreciate you guys giving your time tonight, and please continue to stay safe, and keep doing the great stuff that you guys are doing, and happy golfing.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Ted, and we appreciate it sincerely.
Thanks, Ted. Take care.
All right.
See you soon.
All right.
Cheers.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye. All right. That was Ted Kesten and Chris Fuentes, the founders of Ranger Ready Repellents. And they've also, as they mentioned, have come out with a hand sanitizer as well. I think they're a little short on stock right now with the big demand, but I'm sure they'll be having more, as they mentioned, I think mid-May coming soon. So you definitely want to go to rangerready.com and get your orders in. But as far as their regular products, their insect repellents, as they mentioned, they do have some scented ones, but they also have a non-scent for those of you that don't like to have any scent and that. But one of the nice things about it is it does not contain DEET, and it contains a different product within it that is environmentally friendly and also not harmful to you as well. As I mentioned, they're not here to wipe out any insects. They're just simply trying to keep them away so they can have more enjoyment in their outdoor activities, and they want you to do the same. So make sure you do that. Go to rangerready.com and get yourself some order. All right, I want to thank everybody for tuning in to tonight's show, and once again, thanks to the guys on the panel, John Decker and Clint Wright, for always bringing your best here on the show. I appreciate it very much. And again, to my special guest this evening from Ranger Ready Repellents. Thanks, guys, and I will see you next week with another Coach's Corner panel and another great guest interview, so I hope you'll tune in. God bless everybody, and I'll see you next week right here on Golf Talk Live. Thanks. Thanks for listening to this evening's broadcast of Golf Talk Live. Remember to tune in each week at blogtalkradio.com/Golf Talk Live. If you can't join us live, check out the on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts, or listen on any of the following social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, CastBox, TalkStream Live, and of course, Spotify. To get updates on future shows and upcoming guests, be sure to visit the show's Facebook page, Golf Talk Live Blog. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO. Remember to join me live each week for another great broadcast of Golf Talk Live. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.